Hi there, I'm Shauna Robbins, CEO and founder of Third Spark Health, and I am here today with Pamela Wirth, and I'm so happy to be able to be interviewing her on my series of Thriving Through Menopause. Pamela, welcome.
Thank you so much. I really love being here.
Oh goodness, me too. Can you tell me how you got involved in the health and wellness space?
Yes, kind of a crazy story, but it has a happy ending. I've got two healthy young men, children now. One of them around the age of 5.5 started baby talking, crawling, eyes constantly dilated, devoid of all emotion, was having some strange, like physical tics with his shoulders and his head. And um, they said, and so I went to a lot of different doctors, right? And the one that really, really got me upset was the one that said, he's now autistic. You need to take care of him the rest of his life. And we'd like to check him in for observation for 2 weeks to the children's hospital. And I said, yeah, no, I don't think so. My background is I've been startup to public company, COO and president. I've had up to $100 million P&L. I've had up to 400 employees. I've lived in Singapore. I've lived in London. Like I've had a variety of life experiences to know that not all answers can be solved with one explanation. And so when it comes to your health and wellness, I kind of like to explain it like if you're going to buy a new roof, you might want to get 2 or 3 bids. But thankfully, I found a doctor originally from the Philippines, educated at UCLA. She said, let's pull some blood and find out what's going on inside him. And I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense because we do that for adults all the time, but not for kids. So the blood work showed that he was low in vitamin D3, B12, genetic marker MTHFR. She said the infection had crossed the blood-brain barrier. He tested positive for strep, even though he was negative for strep throat. So that can be a thing that can be happening in your body. And then he had CMV, which is a very common virus. And she said, look, all these things together, his immune system's not working properly. The infection has crossed the blood-brain barrier and it's causing motor, vocal, and mood problems. And I said, okay, so now what? She said, well, first we need to fix his gut. And I said, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. She said, well, we need to put good probiotics in, some good organic prebiotics. We need to remove things that really feed bad bacteria in the gut. And I said, like what? And she said, simple carbohydrates and sugar. And I said, okay. And she said, we're going to treat the infection, obviously, with antibiotics, with antiviral. And the last part was she said, I'm going to teach you how to make supplements at home from plants that will cross the blood-brain barrier and help bring down the inflammation and calm the body down. She said, because all symptoms come from inflammation, all disease, all symptoms. She said, it's just a matter of what and how. And if you can control that and help the body detox properly, then you won't have any symptoms. And so she's teaching me how to do all these things. She says, by the way, she goes, if you take these things too, you'll never have menopausal symptoms. And I was like, that's weird. And, fast forward now that I'm 50, I have so many friends that are having so many issues. And knock on wood, thankfully, I'm not. And I was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, oh yeah, funny story. The doctor told me that if I put all these things together that I would never have them. And she goes, do you take them? And I said, yeah. And she goes, why are you not helping anyone else? And I said, okay. So then I started MetaStrong. And that has things that help the body naturally calm inflammation and help it naturally detox. And so what that means is things like frankincense, turmeric, olive leaf extract, antibacterial, olive leaf extract, or that's oregano's antibacterial, olive leaf extract is antiviral. But like your frankincense, your turmeric, your omegas, things that really help calm the body down and help your body flush out those toxins. That's hugely important because as we get older, we come into contact with so many things that we become less efficient in detoxing properly. And so our bodies just kind of build up, and they get pretty inflamed and pretty pissed off, for lack of a better word. And so it's just really important to make sure that we've got certain ingredients that help keep our bodies calm and healthy.
Wow. I don't even know where to begin to unpack this.
I know, it's crazy.
First of all, what an amazing experience you had with your son's doctor, right? That's
Yeah, she's super
uncommon.
cool.
I don't
Yeah.
typically hear this from women that I interview. So I think that that's really fantastic. Second of all, your product sounds amazing. I can't wait to find out more about it. And third of all, what about different types of dietary and nutritional changes that women can make that will go along with not only supporting their detoxification process in the body, but helping them through menopause, their hormone shifting, and all of those good things too. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I really do. And I have a lot of this kind of lined out in my book called Saving My Son, which, starts from a different story, but a lot of it applies to all of us with all of our symptoms. And so doing a deep dive on what is happening in your life that might be causing your body to be inflamed. Um, Sugar is a huge one. I mean, I was raised in an Irish Catholic family, lots of carbs, lots of sugars. Um, there's an amazing amount of evidence in terms of how that drives your immune system, depression, anxiety, sleep. Your neurotransmitters are all well, not all, 90% housed and produced in your gut. And so it's really, really important to get the sugar and the simple carbs under control.
Got any
Um,
tips for that, by the way? Because that's really challenging to do, especially during menopause.
I
Yeah.
know it's so hard. I have found that I find certain things that I allow myself little bits of ice cream, little bits of chocolate. I mean, it's just, you don't have to go as much as you used to, with the entire pint of ice cream. And I find that if you allow yourself to have little bits here and there, that it helps those cravings. And I'm not a big fan of the sugar alcohols, but those are ways to kind of get yourself off of some of the regular sugars too. Um, and then everybody's got a different opinion. I still think natural sugars are different than refined sugars. Thinking to honey, I know maple syrup is super sweet, or fruit is super sweet in some cases, but that also can kind of help in those cases where you do. And if you sweat a lot, you really do need to recoup some of those sugars. I mean, it's not like you have to go completely off all the time, but those refined ones, those sugar and with the processed flours and things, they really are not good for you and really do a number on your body. Um, the other thing that we had found that made a difference in our house, and I kind of talk about this too, is we removed all the carpet in our house because it holds on to a lot of dust. It puts off a lot of chemicals. Things that potentially you can control that might be making your body have allergic reactions, symptoms. I mean, all these things, it's not like you can just say, it's all these little things add up to a big thing, and
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of time to undo them. And sometimes there's things you can control and sometimes you can't. Um, Definitely don't recommend living in the landing zone of an airport. That's a big thing. In Scottsdale, Arizona, which is where I live, there's a huge amount of really high net worth individuals that live in the landing zone, and they put off, a lot of toxins, which cause a lot of health problems. So anyway, that's sidebar.
No, I like that you touch on that because I do think it's all about making these small but powerful changes. People think that like they have to just change everything. They all of a sudden have to start exercising or meditating or like stop eating meat or stop eating dairy or, get rid of all the junk in their pantry. And I think it's making these small or move, right? Like sell their house,
Yeah.
move to a different neighborhood, right? But it's about making these small but powerful changes that over time really change the course of your health and your wellness and your well-being. And I like that you touched on those. I hadn't really thought about the carpets. They do off gas a ton.
Yeah.
And you're so right about that. And as women, our endocrine systems are so sensitive, right? And we have so many endocrine disruptors in so many things, right? Our hairspray, our nail polish, our
Yeah.
lotions, our makeups, I mean, shampoo. I mean, it's like you're bombarded with these endocrine disruptors, not to mention plastics, right? And the BPA plastics and everything. So it is such an overload on the system. And again, it brings us back into detoxification, right? Because
Yeah.
the more you can clean out those detoxification pathways, the healthier you're going to be, and hopefully the easier your menopause transition will be.
Yeah. And, it's really been interesting too. And this is kind of an odd, kind of non-medical, but kind of sort of medical. So my mom, she's had about 90 days to live for almost 6 years, stage 4 cancer. And so after two very well-known, internationally well-known institutions said that, it was game over for her. And after 18 chemotherapies, a couple of radiations, she really felt bummed out that, she thought that she couldn't do anything. And she said, what do I do? And I said, okay, well, kind of looked into it. On my podcast, Encourage Your Wellness, I interview a lot of doctors. And so I've had the opportunity to have kind of these sidebar conversations. And a lot of them will quietly say that they leave the United States to do certain types of treatments. And some of these treatments I have found helped her detox her chemotherapy out of her body and help rebuild her cells. So while I was with her, I may have tried a couple of them. Like ozone IV is awesome. Ozone when it's put in. So what they do is they take out like some of your blood, they put in some ozone gas, put it back in your arm. And the ozone kills things like bacteria, viruses, fungi, and then really forces your body to focus on the things that are important. And so you feel like $1,000,000. You've got all this clarity and energy. And it's like, wow, it really, you forget how much junk might be, stuck in your system. Or things like dandelion root or a colon cleanse. I mean, when your colon gets backed up, it's like, oh, and all that junk is in there. And, taking a simple supplement or trying, like a coffee enema or something, all these things just really help the body clean. And all of a sudden your skin and your hair and your nails and the wrinkles. And so you don't necessarily have to just rely on supplementation or food or some people really like hyperbaric chambers or cryotherapy or red light beds. All of these things are anti-inflammatory in nature and help your body regenerate with healthy cells. And you have to remember that every cell is reproducing. And is it going to be reproducing what is sick inside it or what's well inside it? And so how do you help that mitochondria get as healthy as it can? So when it reproduces, it's reproducing healthy cells. Um, anyway, that's a side note.
No, I think it's an important note because especially as we age as women, the responsibility for our health lies on us. I mean, there's so much medical gaslighting and just us, not participating in clinical trials, not being part of studies, just being ignored or overlooked. So we need to learn how to advocate for ourselves, but first and foremost, we have to learn what works for our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you bring up things like that because this is a journey. It is a menopause journey, right? This, what I call the third spark of life. Like this is an extra, hopefully 30 years or more that we're all going to be able to get that maybe our mothers and grandmothers or great grandmothers didn't have a chance for. So really looking for things that is really going to help your body thrive as you age is really, really important. So yeah, I think that's really interesting that you brought those things up and shared those.
And then one of my boys likes to make fun of me. He's like, well, now that you're 50, you better keep on stretching. And I was like, nah, you're not wrong. But yeah, making sure we can still touch our toes and do light weights. And I was in a discussion with a friend of mine this morning about hormones. And she says, my doctor has doubled my testosterone and wants to start me on estrogen. And she just turned 50. And I was like, I mean, do you have symptoms? And she goes, well, very seldom. And I said, well, why would you mess with it? If it's working, like, why would you monkey with this already? I think, a lot of us automatically think that that's something that we have to do. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just maybe ask a few more questions. Maybe you don't need it. Maybe you do. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And just educate yourself, right?
Yeah.
Educate yourself and then follow your intuition of what feels good to you. Like you did that as a mother when you knew something was up with your son instead of just accepting the diagnosis. You dug a little bit further because there was intuition around that said, hold on a second, let's get a second opinion or a different opinion. I think as women, we're so lucky to be so intuitive and we just have to use it to take care of ourselves. We use it to take care of other people, but now menopause is the time to use it to take care of yourself. So I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think about this time of our lives as kind of sad. And I like to think of it in terms of what happened over the last 50 years is a lot. So what could happen over the next 50 is pretty awesome. So, as long as we're in as good a health as we can be, it could be pretty inspiring and pretty fun.
Yeah, well, women all around the planet need to be elevated, I believe, during this phase in life. So the more conversations we have about these things, the better. The more education women have, the better. Knowledge is power. So talk to me about mental health. I know in the article you talked a bit about mental health, and I think that's really important because as women go through menopause and they lose their estrogen, they lose their serotonin. I know in my experience when I started having hot flashes and night sweats, because I'm 52, and I went to my general practitioner and I just said, help. And she said, oh, here, have an antidepressant. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. This is an estrogen issue. And she was like, yeah, but this will take the edge off and you'll be able to sleep. And I was like, oh, okay. but that's kind of a Band-Aid. I want to, deal with the issue here. So talk to me about anxiety, depression, mental health issues for women at this stage in the game.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere, and every family is experiencing it in such large pieces. I mean, I've got one son who has a lot of mental health that he really tries to get his hands around, and the other one just stuffs it down and doesn't think about it. And you know, I think mental health really comes down to, can you envision a full cup, like a full happy cup? And how do you keep that cup happy? What types of activities, what types of things, what types of people? Um, and I think at this stage of our life, I was talking about this with another friend of mine, we now feel like we can accept the fact that I don't want that person in my life. I find that that conversation destructive, and I don't want to talk about that. We have the confidence to redirect. Um, yes, of course, there's going for walks and exercise and sweating. Not everybody likes to sweat. Not everybody likes to exercise. Not everybody likes to meditate. Um, I find meditation to be hard because I have a very busy mind. So I try to do it a couple of times a day. One, when I'm either going for a walk or I'm in the gym, I put on like a meditation thing. And there's still plenty of stuff going on around me, but I find that I can just kind of go through the motions, which is kind of funny. And then when I'm laying in bed at night, I find that I can just kind of imagine clean white light flowing through my body, and it kind of helps, and it sounds kooky, and if you can kind of talk
But
yourself
it's
through the
so not like it's so needed
yeah.
at this stage in the game. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think things like yoga are amazing. I struggle with not being good at yoga. And so then I find it kind of
You and me both.
anxiety. Yeah. Gives me anxiety to go.
Yeah,
Cause I'm like,
I literally fail at yoga. It's terrible, which is not the point of yoga, right?
yeah. Yeah. Like I'm not super cute and I can't do whatever, all the stuff that they're doing. And so it's like, um, so I do need to force myself to do some of these things. But anyway, going back to what makes you feel good, I think is a lot of where mental health stems from.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Fill the cup. I think that's a
Yeah,
great analogy to really think about the things in your life that fill you up and the things that don't, and how to create boundaries and how to say no without guilt, and how to, um, be able to provide a life that's really authentic to you. I call it authentic aging. I'm always talking about this with women. Like, what are you doing that's creating a life that feels like yours?
hmm,
Because so much of the earlier stages in our life we build for our families or our careers or our employees or our bosses or our parents, and it's like, this is now that stage where you get to actually build a life that looks and feels like you. And what is
absolutely.
that? Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this chat today. Can you tell me
My
how
pleasure.
women can connect with you, how they can find your product, how they can find out more about working with you?
Yes. And so a big part of what I'm working on this year is, I wrote the book, I've got the podcast with other practitioners on it. Um, I launched a supplement company. I'm layering in now cost-effective lab testing, telehealth, and community. And so what I want to do is provide a safe place for people to connect with each other. And recently going through some rebranding where my mentor said, look, instead of talking to everybody, you really need to focus on talking to moms, because those are the ones that are really the CEOs of the family making health decisions. So switching things from encouraging your wellness to empowered moms, although obviously we still take care of the entire family. But again, just really trying to speak to those that are making these tough decisions.
Wow. Okay, great. What's the name of your podcast?
Um, Empowered Moms, Hello Health.
Nice.
And our website is gethellohealth.com. Book is Saving My Son on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're Hello Health Nutrition. And obviously would love to connect. I would love feedback on anything we're doing right or doing wrong that anybody would love to, collaborate on too. This is kind of a big journey and a big thing I'm taking on, but I think it's the right thing.
Wonderful. Well, that's what being 50 is all about, right? Taking a new
That's
big
right.
journey, taking a new adventure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Pamela. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Shauna.